Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special live stream where we're going to be joined by none other than AI expert extraordinaire Cal Al-Dhubaib. And we are going to be talking about what skills are more relevant in the AI world. Now, before we get into that, I want to just go over a few housekeeping items to you. So first and foremost, welcome to this live stream. So we would love if you could share where you're joining from, and maybe say a little bit about what you do. And then most importantly, add your own voice to this discussion, because we want to hear from you. What do you think which skills are relevant in this new AI world? So post your questions there. We will be getting to those questions. And before I introduce Cal and get to the main event, a couple of quick notes. So as you well know, we are hosting our ODSC AI East 2026 in Boston on April 28th to 30th. It's our biggest event of the year, and we're super excited there. Cal and a lot of other excellent speakers are going to be attending. I'm not sure if you had a chance to check out the schedule yet, but it is very, very packed. And not only that, but a lot of the topics you've been hearing about, such as OpenClaw, the new agentic AI stack, cloud co-work, autonomous systems, and all that stuff. We have a very, very busy agenda around lots of the newest topics. So I know you're all very busy. So go check that out. Check out the schedule. And we do have a special deal for you today. If you sign up today, the team is telling me, Ira backstage there, and I think she'll share it. We do have a special 50% off. So you can scan that QR code there and get that link. And don't forget, if you cannot attend in person, we have a full separate virtual schedule. This is not just about live streaming out or broadcasting out. We have a full schedule there with talks as well as training sessions. So if you need to brush up on what is in the latest in AI, what's going on, or just understand what's going on in AI, then ODSC East, whether you can attend in person or virtually, is definitely what you want to check out. And we will have an expo there as well. So if your boss is not investing in AI training, and they should be, but if they're not, and you just want to go check out our expo and look at some of the solutions being provided there, as well as our expo talks, check that out as well. And none other than Cal Al-Dhubaib is going to be talking about engineering trust. And maybe we'll get him to talk about his new company as well in this conversation. So Cal, welcome to the discussion.
Hello, hello. It's good to be here.
So Cal, you're talking at ODSC. You've also been doing some guest podcasts for us. You just started a new role in a new company, new job, and you're at HumanX. So you are a busy fellow, my friend.
Absolutely.
Where are you at the moment? Is that a smoked window view, or is that a cloudy San Francisco view?
It could be AI at this point, but actually I'm in San Francisco and just outside the Moscone Center, where I've been attending HumanX all week with my new colleagues at Rubrik.
Oh, nice. So quickly, tell us about, actually, where do we start? Let's start with HumanX first.
Okay.
So HumanX is a big conference happening in San Francisco. I do know that Andrew Ning is speaking there, but what's the most interesting thing you've heard around AI this week? Because you're very much like me in the AI bubble. So what's new and interesting you're hearing?
So I actually had an epiphany. Well, and it's been a great lineup. I'm a huge fan of Andrew Ng. I love Fei Li as well. There's been some really great luminary speakers here. And in Andrew's talk, he actually was talking about Coursera and the growth of people taking AI courses. And apparently in 2025, it was double the rate of 2024. Every 4 seconds, someone was enrolling in an AI course on Coursera. The scale is insane. But what I think is most interesting is actually, especially as agentic-based coding tools have become the norm, what becomes more relevant isn't learning the AI skills necessarily. That's important. We have to do that. But it actually makes human skills more relevant. And that's been a really big theme of the show here. So, for example, when you're able to ship code a lot faster. And Andrew talked about this, how he used to have project teams of 15 that he can now do with 2. The bottleneck is no longer code generation. It's quality controlling the code. It's product management, and it's discerning, it's deciding what's worth building. And so there's a lot of talk now about AI is coming for all the knowledge work, but there's a growing consensus that there's so much work left to be done, and it's going to rely on skills that make us more human: discernment, judgment, quality assurance, knowing how to evaluate, design, style, interaction. And then at the end of the day, people want to buy from people. People want to talk to people they trust. And so this world of like, we're going to have our agents all talking to each other and kumbaya, it just, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I do like the emphasis on people skills. It also ties into today's conversation. And the one I've been hearing a lot is definitely judgment, empathy, also behavior. And the judgment alone, because that kind of ties into your talk on trust engineering.
Absolutely.
Because we've all seen it now, and we're not always cognizant of what happens. But despite LLM as a judge and AI as a judge, and these evaluation harnesses and all that stuff, at the end of the day, AI is and always will be very good at producing output, right?
Absolutely. Well, and you walk the expo floor, and I love this. There's always the gimmick of the year. Everyone is now very obsessed with voice agents, which, when done right, can be useful. And so you have these booths where it's like you could get coffee, but in order to order the coffee, even though you could tell the human, "Hey, I want a matcha," you have to pick up a phone and talk to a voice agent. That sounds like it's doing a decent job.
Well, I actually drink tea.
Okay,
but I know people, if they don't have their coffee, they get very grumpy. So
I'm in that.
I guess if the coffee's right in front of you, you got to dial an agent. No. We've been predicting voice is the new UI for a long time, and I'm still a huge fan of voice, and I'm in my venture work. Sure. I'm seeing some unbelievable applications of voice, which I can talk to later. But getting back to the judging, the judgment aspect, because I think when I talk to people about skills, I'll be doing a book tour pretty soon, and when they hear things like empathy and judgment, they're thinking like, that's not really a skill. I know judgment, I know empathy. How is that a skill? And that's the kind of pushback I either get, or I can kind of see how they react to that. And what I tell people is like, okay, so think about judgment for a second. Going back to my earlier point, LLMs are very good at producing output, right? They're very, very good. And think about the role. Let's pick on software engineering for a moment. Think about the role of software engineering. So when I'm building a new application, greenfield app, I can be 10 to 200x more productive than I was before, right? Because it's just producing so much code. And 100%, my skill has shifted from being able to memorize the syntax, memorize the API, memorize how to deploy something, and just reviewing the code.
Sure.
And that code review is the judgment part, right? I talk to people in marketing departments, sales departments, where they're generating reports, generating emails. The AI is doing that work now, and really the skill comes down to judgment. And it is a very involved and a very valuable skill, because judgment is taking on to mean so much right now. So I'm assuming that you have the skills and the knowledge to review this. When is it hallucinating?
Absolutely.
Number one. Two is what's unique about what I'm saying? Does it have the right context? Does it have the right goal? Because the output is produced so quickly, and I see a lot of people devaluing judgment and just taking the LLM output, and it's leading to all sorts of problem. Where if I'm going to hire somebody in marketing right now, or if I'm going to hire someone as a coder, I not only want you to code, but I want to interview you for your ability to apply judgment to the marketing materials, to sales, to coding. And I've been interviewing for another company, helping them hire another startup, helping them hire engineers.
Sure.
And because they wanted me to come in and assess the engineers' AI, their new AI coding skills. Yeah. And how do you assess an engineer for that? And when I started asking them how they were reviewing the code and applying judgment and context around it, I got some very interesting answers. And it's definitely a new skill set that needs to be
What
honed and
surprised you?
trained. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to maybe so what were Andrew Ning and Fifi Lee and others saying about when they dove into judgment?
Sure.
Did they get deeper, or was it still kind of abstract and high level?
No, no, they got pretty tangible, and actually, it's really funny. I think I counted Andrew at least 6 or 7 times pleading everybody to learn to code in his like 20
Still,
minutes.
still.
He's like,
He's
I
still
will
banging that
die on
drum.
this.
Well, vibe code. Like I think learning the code. I don't know. I'm past it.
Yeah.
I'm past it. I'm past telling people to learn to code. I'm more about telling people to learn how to read code, understand the syntax.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the implication of it, is like, how do you think about the reasoning of coding? And when traditionally, at least at the time I learned, and when you learned, learning to code really started with building blocks and diagrams. How do you take an abstract process like, hey, I want to, even something as mundane as let's figure out how to build an app that takes an order and then turns it into like an action. You diagram that out. Oh, we've got this database over here with inventory, we've got input. And so you learn to think about algorithms in a very logical way. And I think when he's saying you have to learn how to code, it's how do you reason through the way machine processes execute on actions. I also think another important part of that is with AI, we've shifted from a world that is dependent on deterministic software. So if this, then that, to a world that is probabilistic in nature. You've got these LLM-based interfaces, and there's always some probability that this LLM or this machine learning model is going to misinterpret the context or have an error built into it because it's not equipped for the specific scenario. And so if you're training yourself to think about software in a probabilistic way, you start to shift how you think about design. Oh, it's not always do this or this. It's, hey, if you're pretty confident, move forward with this workflow. If you're not confident, do this other thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That type of thinking doesn't happen without really learning how to code. And so you don't have to write it or type it out, but you have to reason through these types of scenarios to build that muscle.
And I'm very curious. One of the drums I've been banging for the last year is starting to think as AI as a teammate, not a tool. And sounds very simplistic, and it's a nice little buzzy phrase. But are people talking about AI teammates or something synonymous to that? Either at that event or other events that you've been attending? Because I think that's a key skill as well, and understanding what the difference is and how to implement that is something I've been looking at.
I think, it's really interesting because in the past we've had like this human to human collaboration, and now we're really expanding the notion of what it means to collaborate with something. And so you've got human to AI collaboration, AI to AI collaboration. And I don't know if I'm personally a fan of the anthropomorphizing and calling it a teammate, because it doesn't necessarily have the same empathy or relationship that you would have with human workers. And if we're all off in a corner just collaborating with AIs, we get very, very isolated. So I think terminology is evolving there. But one thing that I think is interesting to highlight is this notion of permissions. So we used to have, hey, you as a human have the right to access this information source and take these actions. And then you'd have software applications. The software application is connected to this database. And very traditional cybersecurity controls. Now we have agentic systems. And so that could be as simple as, ChatGPT acting on your behalf and connecting to your Google Drive, for example. Or it could be much more sophisticated, and you have a tool like Claude Code that's actually deploying or producing code and connecting to databases and taking read-write actions, for example. And we now have this notion of there's the permission of the human, there's the permission of the software, and then what flowed from the human through the agent that resulted in a consequence. So what human influenced what AI system to either write or delete, and having that traceability. And so there's a lot of conversation now about the infrastructure that needs to be in place around those types of controls. And actually, not to plug it, but that's a big part of the reason why I'm so excited about my opportunity with Rubrik.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So Rubrik is in a very interesting space they call data resilience. And it starts from this premise that not if you get hacked, it's when you get hacked, right? We want all the controls in place. We want to minimize the risk, but we also acknowledge that it's going to happen. There's bad actors out there constantly trying to go after things as simple as hospital systems for ransomware type attacks to more malicious types of activities. And so when you get compromised, what do you do next? And so Rubrik has been in the space of recovering and restoring data in addition to safeguarding against attacks. They're taking that same mindset towards AI. It's not if your AI system does something you don't want it to do. We've seen no shortage of examples recently. There's the cases with Replit, for example, where the code wiped a database and then blatantly like told the the person like, oh yeah, I didn't know what to do, so I just wiped it. So it's not if, it's when. So what do you do in those scenarios? And it starts with understanding what AI tools do you have in your ecosystem and what permissions do they have, and are you okay with those permissions? So that's Rubrik in a nutshell, and that's why I'm really excited about it. I think it's a big part of the scaffolding we need to use these tools safely.
No, I think that's very cool, and congratulations, by the way. That's very exciting. And definitely with the advent of AI, I think it's going to increase the need for tools. So as you say, it's not if you get hacked, it's when you get hacked.
Absolutely.
But just to bring this conversation back to the topic of today's discussion, I think it behooves us to talk about what are the skills you need in the age of AI. And again, there's a fairly diverse audience here. The audience ranges from AI engineers and data scientists to software engineers to people who are marketing, operations. We have doctors and nurses and lawyers show up at our meetups. So maybe I'll go through my list and.
Well, before you do that, I think I know a certain someone who had a book published recently that was a bestseller with the title Skill Shift in it. So can you,
am I blushing, Cal? Am I blushing? Yeah. Oh yeah. So, okay. Sorry, I forgot about that. So I just published a book, everyone. It's called The AI Skill Shift. And it was a lot of fun to write that. I spent about, about a year and a half writing it. Cal is in the book. He did a excellent guest podcast for us around AI nightmares. So I believe that's chapter 8 in the book. So Cal and his guest, can you remind me who the guest was, Cal?
Reed Blackman.
Reed Blackman. How can I forget that? I mentioned him as well. Yeah.
Management.
Yeah. So that was inspiration for that that chapter. And again, most of that book was drawn on conversations I had with ODSC attendees, people from our community, people like yourselves, and also speakers and founders, startups in the industry. And what I really tried to figure out there was, if you remember a couple of years ago, everyone was saying programming is dead, software engineering is dead as a discipline. And sure enough, like jobs are disappearing, not being hiring. And, what were the new skills software engineers needed, for example, that we just talked about, right? And now that same doom narrative is kind of breaking over every other industry. So my book was a pushback against that. So if you put aside the doom narrative and you put aside AI, superintelligence, what can we do today? What are the skills you need to learn? So that was a very, very fun project. It is released, so go check it out on Amazon if you have a chance. But if I want to start at the very start, I think the key skills that came from me from that book, and I still believe today, are like number one, AI literacy, right? Learn to understand and talk about AI. So even if nothing else, you can ask questions about AI, because when we talk about not trusting AI or AI using, how can we judge AI? Well, literacy is a really important part of that, right? So I think that's the first skill, number one. Then the second part, second skill that I also had to devote a whole chapter in the book to was communicating with AI. And for the most part, everybody is very, very well used to communicating with AI because you're already doing it with Gemini or Claude or OpenAI or ChatGPT. You're doing prompting, right? But the problem with that prompting is, for the most part, it requires certain expertise and training because a lot of us tend to do weak prompting. You're probably doing it now or you're doing it today. You go into ChatGPT and say, summarize this contract for me, or help me write an email. You give it a little bit of context, but maybe no examples. And as we well know, and if you read that chapter, prompt design for us non-engineers, or prompt engineering for us engineers, is very, very involved. And then it kind of goes all the way, because I want to give you a chance to speak in this, Cal. There's a lot of things in between, but then it goes to shifting away. It's a real skill to stop using AI as a tool. And finally, Cal, we got something to disagree on. So yeah, I hear what you say, your pushback on AI as a teammate, but AI as a collaborator. But it really is a different mindset, because what I want is, it's easy for me to use AI as a tool and go into my Gmail, write a Google Apps script, and have it sent to OpenAI and summarize some of my emails or some of the research or newsletters I get. But that's still a tool. What I really want is something like Claude Cowork or other agents running in the background. And the key skill for me is, how can I give this a feedback loop to help it improve every day? So here's one key example. When I started using AI to build out my workflow for Cortical for research on startups, I had kind of a chain going, and it would look at a startup submission for a slide deck, give it feedback on actually my scoring rubric, to use your company name there, as to, and then did some market research from stuff like that. But it was getting stuff right and getting stuff wrong. And it wasn't until I started using it as a teammate and say, okay, this is right, and put in a feedback mechanism there, put in thumbs up, thumbs down, or here, update the system prompt with what I did not like about your last report. Sure. I actually told it to go back and update the system prompt, which is kind of like the system memory, and gave it more context, and started treating it as a again, I hate to use the word since you don't like it, but as a teammate. And that's a skill that I'm still refining and working on. So yeah. Sorry,
I love that. It's new ways of working, and we can agree to disagree on what we call that. Is that really a teammate? Well, I think from like a human behavioral science perspective, maybe not, but it's certainly a new way of working, and it requires upskilling and understanding how to use these tools collaboratively. So I think the intent, we're 1000% aligned, Sheamus.
Yeah. But so in terms of what you see, so let's say we start with engineers and then non-technical people. What are you seeing are some of the key skills for 2026 that people need to get their hands around?
So I'm gonna plug my talk, and I'm so excited about trust engineering. It's something I started talking about last year.
I remember that.
Trust is the fundamental currency. And for folks who don't know me, I've spent more than a decade leading teams building AI and ML systems in heavily regulated environments. So healthcare, life sciences, energy, education, places where there's high costs of making mistakes, or regulated and protected data assets. And over the years, I've seen a lot of evolution on how folks think about AI risk management. And it used to be very, very abstract. It used to be, hey, this sounds a little too risky. We're actually not going to use machine learning or AI. And now you have scenarios. We just had a great podcast with a chief innovation officer at a major health system. They have shortages in nursing. Their margins are dropping. They have no choice but to use AI in certain contexts. So the attitude is now shifting to there is no better alternative. If we don't use AI, it's going to get worse for patient care. So trust engineering, to me, is a shift in thinking about AI risk management from just put all the controls in place, put observability in place, measure it to death, figure out all the ways in which it can go wrong. That's the traditional way we think about AI risk management. Trust engineering says, actually, we need to start upfront by understanding the decisions we're influencing and what's the cost of making mistakes. And then how do we balance workflows between what has to stay purely human versus what can be safely automated. So it's a shift in thinking about probabilistic systems and building a muscle around how to design those workflows. Another really important part of trust engineering is expectation management. And I really love to use this analogy. Let's say you know tomorrow is going to be rainy, but you wake up and it actually turned out to be sunny and you get to walk to the office. You're pleasantly surprised. But if you think tomorrow was going to be a sunny day and you had planned to walk and it turned out to be raining, you're disproportionately more upset. And so there's a lot of things we can do to notify users at the time of using these tools. And I'll give you an example from the expo, these voice agents where you call and make your order. Well, I said, hey, I can't really do dairy. I want almond milk. It says, oh, we can't do that. Oh, great. It helped me manage my expectations. I go over to the order to pick up my order. And I just said, hey, hold the cream. I'll take the regular milk. It's fine, but hold the cream. I pick up my drink and I'm like, there's definitely cream in this. I asked the person who made it and they said, oh, actually you could only pick one of the 4 options. It's really not going to act on the on exceptions to that. Well, then put a giant sticker that says, if you right, manage your expectations before you give somebody the tool. There's things as simple as that, but things that I've seen in apps where they provide step-by-step instructions or example prompts. There's a lot of this expectation management that actually helps users use tools more successfully. So trust engineering is all about how do you learn to think about AI design and incorporating AI in ways that set up humans for success.
Yeah, I do think that's a key skill for people to learn, even myself. That's going to be a good one, and very much looking forward to that talk, Cal. Let's just take a couple of quick questions because I think we're over in a few minutes. This is interesting. If you want to take a crack at it, Cal.
Okay,
it's a long one.
It is. All right. What's the best way to learn about AI? Most people are using MCP and agents. Most of them are like utility or tools, but might exactly replace existing production processes. What's my take on this? So my take is really going back to something, Sheamus, you said earlier today. And I wanted to add to it. I think learning to work with these tools successfully increases the importance of your ability to delete. How do you decide what processes or routines you don't want involved? How do you simplify? And I heard some really great examples from one of the talks at HumanX, where let's say you're a bank and you've got a loan underwriting process that today includes 40 steps. You could actually use an AI-based tool to go automate each one of those 40 steps. But you're automating a process that was designed for human workflows. Take this document, have this person review it, do this step, bring it back over here. Well, what if you could actually now streamline, because you don't need multiple different touch points, and instead of a 50-step process, it can be a 20-step process. So learning to discern how to automate and what to automate instead of just replicating some of the inefficient processes we have with automation, if that makes sense. And I think that way of thinking is so important.
No, that's a really good point. I've kind of shifted my thinking on this a little bit.
Yeah.
From trying to do it myself, because so much of my work happens in the digital sphere. And I'm using such an eclectic stack of tools. Like when I'm doing software engineering and I'm coding, it's pretty structured and defined, and I know what my stack is, and it's pretty easy to get Claude, a coworker, or a tool to work with that. But it's interesting what that question is around MCP and agents, because I find the stuff that I do want to automate is a bit more open-ended, a bit more messy, and it's working with a lot of legacy tools.
Absolutely.
Here's a good example. Like 3 years ago for Cortical, I built this very sophisticated agent workflow where we go in and look at industry newsletters, summarize them, create research, go look for research that can augment that, and then create another research report and actually do a voice memo, which is kind of cool. So I was, with the OpenAI voice, and now I'm using 11 Labs. And it's kind of brittle. And then I was doing something else, and all of a sudden I discovered a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Google App Scripts, right? So if if listeners, you've never tried Google Apps Scripts, it's like where you can. It's kind of like is it basic code? But I don't know what the coding language is. Pretty easy. What I've started doing is I've used AI to code Google Apps Scripts, and now it's much better at figuring out emails and reports and getting extracting the reports. Sorry, the attachments from it, and even going into my social folder, my spam folder. What did I miss? What should I prioritize today? Go into my calendar, go into analytics and all that kind of stuff. So I've started to think more about legacy processes, my legacy stack, and how do I get at that? Not just through computer use and all stuff like, because I think the automation use tends to lean into, like I've been for the last 2 years, lean too much into agents, and then trying to figure out, do I really need an agent for this? Do I really need an LLM? Do I need a multi-agent? Or do I just need to go into my legacy app, use AI to kind of generate that script, get in there, and then pass my whatever data is to my local LLM running, or maybe you can use an API to another LLM service provider. And I'm getting tremendous mileage out of that. So I think, the old adage when just because you have an agent hammer or LLM hammer, not every problem is a nail.
No.
That's agentic workflow.
Well, some problems can be, yes, you can use an agent, but it can also be solved with yes, no.
Yeah, true. True. So that's my hot take. Use legacy apps.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll add one more, Sheamus, and that's the importance of security. And so this trade-off of like what you're porting into and what applications you're permissioning. The more tools you incorporate into an agentic workflow, the greater the risk, one, for a compromise, and then also context confusion and clash. And so this idea of just add all the tools and add all the data sources and magic will happen just won't work. And so encouraging folks to think about what's the least necessary set of permissions needed to accomplish a given workflow, and learning to iterate and test around that.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good tip. Yeah, optimizing that workflow.
Yeah. Cool.
I do want to get to this last question over because it is a very good question.
Mark is incredibly smart, so I'm not surprised that this is a well thought out question.
Yeah, maybe I'll give my 2 cents in it really quickly. But I think the question answers itself. The foundational area, data quality, technical debt, because those are actually, Mark, that's a very well thought out question, because data quality and technical debt are the 2 areas that are exploding right now, because it's hilarious. For those of us who've been in data science for the last 2 decades or decade or whatever, we all know that famous chart, whether it's right or not, but it's roughly right. 80% of our time is spent cleaning data. So as we used to joke, data science is not the sexiest job of the 21st century, because we're more like data janitors. And I was really laughing. There was a viral post from someone a couple of weeks ago. I forget. I should find the name of it. But basically, they declared that, guess what? AI engineers spend 80% of the time doing what? Cleaning data. Right? And here we are again. And the other thing, too, was we have Jevons paradox is alive and well with software engineering. Like, remember 3 years ago, software is dead, coding is dead. And I predicted back then, and I hate to toot my own horn, but I was right.
As you should.
I said it's going to make it easier for people to code. We're going to need more software engineers because there's going to be more software. And why do we need more engineers? Because we have more software. Because guess what? Technical debt, right? So anyway, that's my hot take.
It's interesting also is I kind of hate this hubris of, okay, we can now produce more code, so we need less engineers. It's almost like saying there's no problems left to solve. Like, there's always been this very long tail of problems, and then we have this cutoff where it's like, yeah, I'd like to solve that, but it's just not practical to solve that. Well, guess what? With the tools we have today, we've now cut into that very, very long tail of what applications we can really go after. So I think there's an explosion of work ahead of us. But on the note of data quality, every enterprise I've ever worked with has pockets of knowledge that gets outdated. Processes evolve and change over time. If you look at any company's wiki, there's always the, oh yeah, don't trust this one because it hasn't been updated in 2 years, and so left the company 6 months ago and nobody picked it up. And so if you go just put an agent on top of that, you're very quickly going to get an agent that is referencing information and treating it as truth that has either aged, become less relevant. And so I'm seeing actually some of the companies that I've worked with over the past couple of years introducing new roles whose job is to be knowledge and information source administration and looking at things like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and what's marked as safe for consumption with agentic tools.
Yeah, I do. I did interview a few of those folks for my book, and they're in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Cal. So we are out of time.
Thanks my goodness. It's always a blast chatting with you, Sheamus, and I can't wait to catch up in a few weeks at ODSC East. And I believe we have a special gift for our listeners, right?
Yes. Ira, can you show that? I think it's the QR code up there as well. Yeah. So again, guys, if you're going to join ODSC, you can snag a free pass there. But if you want a training pass, please check that out. It's 50% off just for today only. I believe that QR code is good for. So come meet myself and Cal, say hello, tell us what you think where AI is headed. And we're definitely excited to see you. It's going to be a great event, a lot of fun, and looking forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Bye, Cal. See you in 2.5 weeks.